Welcome to UC Davis Live. We've been on hiatus for a few months as COVID-19 has disrupted everybody's lives and schedules, but we're back now with a special UC Davis Live COVID-19 series focusing on how researchers across UC Davis have turned their attention and talents to addressing this new virus. We are living in a historic all hands on deck moment right now, and UC Davis has hundreds of scientists, physicians, and researchers addressing every aspect of COVID-19, from its origins in the field to the bedsides of people who've gotten sick from it. And throughout this series, we'll be exploring this research and how it will provide solutions to some of the most pressing problems created by the pandemic. Joining us today are three campus leaders who have helped shape the direction of COVID-19 research on campus. We'll talk about why UC Davis has been at the forefront of COVID-19 research and what excites these leaders the most about the work that's being done here. Allison Brashear is Dean of the UC Davis School of Medicine. Dr. Brashear leads a school that is at the forefront of COVID-19 testing and research and is ranked 7th nationally in primary care. Michael Lairmore is Dean of the School of Veterinary Medicine, where he oversees all teaching, research, and service activities, among other things. The UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine is both the largest and also the #1 vet med school in the country. And Prasant Mohapatra is Vice Chancellor for Research at UC Davis. He oversees research throughout the university, and he helps connect researchers from different schools and disciplines so they can work together in innovative ways to meet today's challenges. Welcome, and thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
So we will be taking questions, and if you're watching us live on the live stream and would like to ask a question, please drop it in the comments section and we will try to work it in to our discussion. So, there's a lot of COVID-19 related research going on at UC Davis. And one of the things that sets apart the UC Davis approach is the focus on bringing together researchers who might not normally work together. I was wondering if Vice Chancellor Mohapatra, if you'd be able to explain why it's so important to have people from different disciplines working together, especially for something like COVID-19.
So if you see the impact of COVID-19, it certainly impacts the human health. It also impacts animal health. It impacts the environmental situations of the entire world. It also impacts the societal life in general. So if you want to find out the solutions to address any of these impacts, we need a comprehensive range of scientists and solutions provider in order to work together for finding an effective solution. Even if you focus only on the biggest impact, which is on human health, there's a lot of opportunity and kind of almost a necessity for our medical scientists to collaborate with our veterinary medical scientists, as well as our environmental sciences folks and the engineering researchers. So there are a lot of opportunities where we can work together in a team in a team having comprehensive domain expertise in order to find appropriate solutions for the current pandemic situation.
And the university does have this One Health initiative, the One Health Institute. Can you talk just briefly about how that brings together, explain what it is and how it brings people together?
So I think Michael might be a better person to answer that question about
Sure.
One Health.
Yeah, it's a institute that's come together to really, as Prasant mentioned, bring together that focus from multiple disciplines around common big issues in society, such as COVID-19. And it really has a common theme of animals, people, and the environmental health. And so it's a variety of programs that come together. And we can get into that a little bit, but some of these are well-known and internationally linked to deal with these kinds of problems.
Allison, now that we're in the middle of this pandemic, what are researchers at the School of Medicine working on to help, get it under control and to help people who, might catch this disease?
So the School of Medicine's been partnering with the Vet Med and the UC Davis campus. There's a variety of initiatives. First and foremost was getting a test up quickly. On March 2nd, we all met and put together the clinicians and the pathologists and the basic researcher virologists and began to work on getting a test up. And we're able to do so in about 10 days. And that was really showed the strength of UC Davis because we were able to get a sample get the proper approvals, and then share that with the virologists. And they were actually able to sequence that and help us get our test up in record time. Also, we've launched several clinical trials, including the remdesivir trial that was just published in the New England Journal for compassionate use. And then we enrolled 19 patients in the 1,000 remdesivir trial. We have about 24 trials up and running for COVID in the School of Medicine, and it's been really a great partnership. There's also lots of other work going on, including serology testing. We've expanded serology testing this week and are recruiting healthcare workers who've been in prior exposed. And then lastly was some convalescent serum, where that's a compassionate use approved by the FDA, where patients who've had COVID then are and have recovered and have no symptoms are then donating their blood. And so there are a variety of opportunities. And I've just been so gratified to see all of the teamwork that's been going on here at UC Davis, the School of Medicine, partnering with all of our other colleagues to really advance science and bring, cutting edge patient care right to our patients here in the community.
That's really great. And when you talk about serology testing, you're talking about blood tests to see if people have the virus, right? And that's something that needs to be kind of created from scratch, because this is a brand new virus and somebody needs to come up with these tests to see if people have it. And that's some of the research that people at the School of Medicine are doing right now.
Right. So there's two things. There's a diagnostic test. And so that's the test that is done with the nasal swab, and it's a PCR test. We stood up a test within about 10 days, the middle of March, and now we're ramping up to be able to do more tests every day. Then there's the serology. That's the antibody test that we started this last week, looking at healthcare workers and are trying to expand that test. That's a little bit different than the diagnostic test. The diagnostic test says you have it or you don't. Right. The serology is antibodies. And one of the things I really want everybody to understand is we don't really know what it means when you have antibodies. It means you were exposed, but we don't know how much of an antibody you have, how long it lasts, what it really means. So it's going to be the test of time with repeated testing to see what the antibodies mean. If you find out you have antibodies, all it means is that you were prior exposed. It doesn't mean that you're immune. And that's something scientists really have to learn. And when we learn about the antibodies, then it's going to help us with all the vaccine. That's really the foundation of the vaccine development.
And also, as far as the plasma transfusions go, I guess once you find out what level of antibodies the person has, that determines whether or not their plasma can be used to maybe help somebody who's in really dire straits. Right.
So that's compassionate use. So that's those transfusions are used for people who are acutely ill. It is something that we are doing and have done. We did 2 patients this past week. This is something that's been around forever. It's been done in SARS. It's been around for about 100 years of taking an immune response from someone who has recovered and then giving that blood or plasma back to an acutely ill patient. It's not something that is going to be able to be mass produced or massively done, but it will help us understand. And the fact that it works gives us some eyes into potentially that the antibodies and understanding the antibodies will help us with vaccine development.
That's great. Michael, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how VetMed has been contributing to the COVID-19 response.
Sure. Yeah. In fact, probably the best question would be how we're not involved. We have so many programs. One of the largest is within the One Health Institute, as we've talked about. And that program is in over 30 countries. It's a large federally funded USAID, Agency for International Development, grant that allows us to build capacity building for just these type of pathogens in the field. So we've worked with these countries over the last decade to really build up the capacity to diagnose, build the laboratory capacity, train individuals throughout these countries. And what's really fascinating about that, they've discovered over 800 types of viruses in nature, and the reservoirs for where those viruses come from, including the COVID-2, which everybody has heard, probably had a bat origin. And what's really fascinating about this is that we've known about coronaviruses since the 1930s, actually in animals. They cause significant disease in animals, in pigs, for example, and chickens. And because of that strong background, knowing those types of infections, knowing the type of things they cause to the body, vaccination approaches, it really sets us up in veterinary medicine to study it at multiple different levels. The PREDICT grant is probably the most visible one in terms of that. And that's really extended into a One Health workforce grant as well, which is to train individuals. The interesting part is those laboratories that were trained through the PREDICT grant before SARS happened are now on the front edge in each of those countries, helping diagnose COVID in their countries. So they're on the front lines and they're doing great work. I think another aspect is really how other researchers, and we mentioned multiple ones across campus, are coming to work on COVID because of the big problem that it is. One of those is in our vector-borne disease group, which study mosquito-borne viruses, which was a collaborative, a well-funded program from CDC. And they actually use some of the same tools that they track mosquito-borne viruses. Now they've switched over to help us track cases of COVID on a real-time basis with easy to understand apps that go into our computers and mobile phones.
And I can't feel strongly enough that kind of doing this work before there's a crisis is so important. Like, you know, we were able to get a little bit of a leg up on this novel virus because of all of the previous work done on SARS and all of the other work finding viruses that we haven't known before. So maybe can you talk a little bit about, you know, how important that basic research is and that kind of the PREDICT program that you were talking about? I feel it's just so important.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, to understand the virus at the molecular level, we were able to, you know, because we knew about these viruses from the 2003 SARS outbreak and from others, we knew the sequences. And so as soon as it was found and sequenced, and that code was used to develop, as Allison mentioned, some of those RT-PCR tests, those tests that are looking at the RNA of the virus. And by having that up and running, it really helped the world sort of understand very quickly that it was spreading rapidly. And so by understanding that, also we go deeper into the parts and pieces of the virus that can be put into the vaccine. And vaccine development, of course, is occurring throughout multiple parts of the world. But we already know where it binds onto cells. We already know that those are some of the key aspects of the virus structure that antibodies need to be formed against. And as Allison mentioned, it's not just any antibody, it has to be a neutralizing antibody, something we know that is protective in those vaccines.
I want to talk a little bit more about the notion that there's so much kind of collaborative work happening amongst the UC Davis campuses. So Prasant, what makes UC Davis a unique place to foster these kinds of interdisciplinary collaborations between departments that or researchers, you know, who normally wouldn't work together?
So let me give an example, and this is an interesting story. On March 17th, we ramped down our entire research enterprise and both the campuses. And I was having a casual conversation with Allison that, you know, there is so much of energy in our researchers. They want to do something. How do we help them steer? So that's when, you know, we had this concept. We discussed that, okay, let's them bring together on a town hall meeting, and we kind of schedule that on a Friday and say that we will encourage and learn from those discussions and what we should do in order to channel this entire energy. To our surprise, within the first minute of the first call, we broke the Zoom capacity record. You know, it exceeded 300. So we had to expand the capacity. But that has been, you know, it wasn't neither Allison or I had imagined it will be this successful. We have gone through 5 weeks of those town hall meetings. There are people from all parts of the campus. They come and they have organically formed different interest group in themselves, and there is a virtual space where they collaborate. It also helps people finding partners for various projects that they are interested in, but they're looking for other expertise. We also help them providing a list of all the funding opportunities, list of all the collaborations that they can achieve. So it has been a very useful vehicle to channel all the energy all over the campus from multiple disciplines. We have people from social sciences, even those who have come and given presentation in those town halls. And all of these presentations have been so widely received. Allison, you want to add something to that?
So I think it was also a chance to really bring the basic scientists and the clinicians together. So we actually gave presentations about clinical trials. We had basic virology and talked about vaccine development. And then we also used this as a platform to do seed funding. So between the School of Medicine and the other schools on campus and Prasant and the provost, we actually developed a pilot grant proposal. So we funded 20 pilot grants out of this. But every week we've had about 300 or so people, and there's an active social media channel where they're communicating. It's really been a great opportunity, and I've been overwhelmed by people's interest. And I just think it really speaks to kind of the heart and soul of UC Davis, of why we're so special, because we have this amazing School of Veterinary Medicine, a top-ranked School of Nursing and Medicine, Engineering, Business. All these folks are coming together. And not only has it led to this collaboration, it's really led to some concrete innovation, like the test and possibly additional opportunities that we really are uniquely able to provide.
It sounds like a wonderful matchmaking service is what
Yes,
it sounds like.
It is a matchmaking service.
Yeah, it is. It is. And if I may quickly add one more point, so it's not only the collaboration within the campus. We are also exploring collaboration with industry. So to give you a quick example, there's this company, Bhandari Inc., which is a pharmaceutical company. They are working with us to do some preclinical trials in one of our core facility in the mouse biology program. We have researchers from our veterinary medicine helping them in that preclinical trial. And there are plans from other faculty from School of Medicine working with them in order to do further clinical trials as we move ahead. If those are successful, and we have planned it out with them, if they have successful, they will use our GMP, which is a manufacturing facility, and they will get help from our engineering faculty in order to start their manufacturing process for the vaccine that they are working on. It's kind of a dermal patch kind of vaccine that they are working on.
That's really great.
We're kind of developing this innovation center called Aggie Square that's in the planning stages right now. And one of the things I've been trying to saying is that it's almost a virtual Aggie Square, right? Where we're virtually collaborating and innovating. And in real time on the town halls, people are kind of catching this and saying, oh, well, I can provide that. Even more amazing is the chat. So people are like, oh, I knew that. I'll connect you with this. And it's just really science and collaboration, translational medicine at its very best.
The way I kind of view this is that it's kind of a, from all the way to the molecule to the treatment. And it's all the way from the field to the hospital bed. You know, if you look at the way that we've strung together the disciplines, you know, there's epidemiologists, there's microbiologists, there's immunologists, as mentioned. But we need everybody to actually pitch in, because all of those ideas, their disciplines, their knowledge and skills apply all the way through the whole pipeline from, you know, where the virus comes from. You know, even though we know about these in animals, what can we learn? What's specific that we can learn? We know coronaviruses happen to be a natural pathogen of cats. We know that those same kind of drugs were used a couple of years ago in cats successfully to treat that. How can we make sure that that word gets out so that when we are doing trials in humans, we can learn from what we've already known in animals? But if you look at it, it's a linear pipeline all the way from the discovery of the pathogen all the way to the treatment. I think the thing that we are all motivated by and we're all affected by is the severe impact on everybody's lives. Everybody that's, of course, self-isolated, but we really feel for those families, those patients that have succumbed to the disease. Our heart goes out to them, and all the frontline people that are on the front lines, the nurses, the doctors that are treating them. You know, this motivates all of the researchers. It you don't need any more motivation than to understand that your contribution has a big impact. Even though you may think it's a very small thing, you may be studying a small little protein, but that protein may be the key for a vaccine production. And so, this is very motivating to our researchers and our
Well,
students as well.
It's a remarkable accomplishment organizationally, because so many organizations are, especially large ones, are saddled with, people working in their silos, and to be able to break the walls down for a higher purpose of helping people with their health and their lives, it's really a great thing. I want to remind people that if you're watching live and would like to ask a question, you can just drop it in the comments and we will include it. And we have actually gotten a few questions. Sure. So let me start with Julie from Facebook. She's on Facebook. She wants to know if there are immunity tests and if there are any active COVID-19 saliva tests in progress. Maybe Allison wants to answer that.
So the immunity test would be this antibody blood test. To my knowledge, there are no saliva tests. I really want to caution everybody about tests. So the test that we've developed here at UC Davis is about 95% sensitive and 99% specific. It's a really good test. It's as good or better than the HIV test that people are aware of. Some of these tests out there, the quicker does not mean better. The fact that it's not blood, not a nasal swab is probably a one clue. So I think it's really important to get testing from a certified lab. So research labs are not supposed to be doing clinical testing. You also want to get it from a place that is reputable, because there are lots of tests out there, but not all of them mean what they say they mean. And again, when it comes to antibodies, knowing that you have antibodies just means you have antibodies. It doesn't mean that you're safe to walk in and talk to a COVID patient without having the appropriate mask and other PPE. So really, really important to not put too much stock in whatever result you do get.
Okay. We have another question from Shika, who's watching on Facebook as well. Are there any updates on strains and mutations of COVID-19?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are. In fact, there's a great New York Times sort of review of those. And we know that this is an RNA virus, so it does have the ability to mutate over time. And those are fingerprints that we can use. So each one of these are sequenced. And we know, for example, in California, that the strains from California and Washington were different from those that are coming from Europe into the New York area. So they're markers of that. Some of these mutations don't affect the virus function. Others will cause it to change. And so those are carefully monitored. In fact, those are being used on a real-time basis to monitor the extent of the infection, but also if it's changing enough that it'll change the way we approach diagnostics or vaccine production.
I was wondering if you could give us an example of maybe how the medical school and the veterinary school are working together to address the pandemic. Are there any really kind of good examples of how your schools are working?
Well, I think Allison alluded to this, but our Center for Infectious Disease and Immunology worked very quickly to take the isolate from some of the very first patients and grew that up because they had the biosafety security laboratories. We knew from our work with AIDS, we knew from our work with Ebola, with Zika virus, we had these capabilities. And so our researchers, our virologists got together very quickly to grow in cell culture, because you need to do that in order to have enough material to develop those diagnostic tests. And so that was a really immediate example. I know Alice and I were very excited how fast they got together to do that at the Primate Center and at the Center for Infectious Disease with the medical school.
So what happened was on February 26th is when UC Davis took care of the first community-acquired patient in the hospital. And then on March 2nd, right behind me in the conference room, we brought all these people together, including the virologists, the people from the California Primate Center, but also our laboratory and our clinicians. And we had them all in a room. And it turned out that some didn't know each other, and some didn't know that we had samples. And within a record time, we were able to get approval to use the sample, give it to the virologist. They sequenced it, they gave it back, and we used that for validating our test. So it was in real time, people working together, and it has just spawned a huge collaboration between all of our schools. It's really been very, very exciting. And it's really allowed us to do much more intra-school, intra-campus, intra-departmental collaboration than we could have possibly done, because people were so energized to work, 24/7 to move this along. It's really been a wonderful, wonderful example of translational science.
We have another question from Molly, who's watching on Facebook. What's currently known about babies or children and COVID-19? What has more recent research discovered regarding how the virus impacts babies, children? And what do families need to know about transmission?
Well, of course, we're learning everything every day. I want to make a big pitch about care of children. So here in Sacramento, we've learned that there are 100 or so children who have not gotten their vaccines, either because people aren't able to get them in or they're scared. And so we really want to make sure that children are getting their vaccines, children are getting their care, particularly diabetic care. It's incredibly important. Now, there are evolving scenarios and different patterns in children. So there's this whole issue about microclots, and frankly, it's everybody's learning in real time. So children may be affected differently by the virus, but we also need to be aware that children still need to get their care, particularly their vaccine. So I really want to urge that. Here in Sacramento, it's one of the safest places to be. Our hospital is one of the safest places to be. This morning, we had 2 COVID positive patients in our hospital. That's been one of the wonderful things that I have actually been able to report as dean on our 7 a.m. School of Medicine 100-person phone calls is, what is the data about the number of patients we're caring for. And we have continued to care for patients with cancer. We never stop taking care of cancer patients. We're a level 1 trauma center, comprehensive NCI cancer center, and we are taking care of people with acute diseases. People still have strokes and heart attacks, and we're here doing that as well as really taking care of COVID patients and getting out in the community and making sure people are getting tested.
That's very important, because I know there are a lot of people who may have a, regular health issue that they might be afraid to go to the doctor's office or to the hospital, but it's good to know that it's actually probably one of the most safest places you could go to.
It is incredibly safe. We are screening in our hospital. When you come in, you have to get a QR code, answer questions. You're given a mask when you come in the hospital. Everybody who comes in the hospital gets a sticker for the day that they've been screened. We're doing this similar thing in our clinics. And our doctors are here taking care of patients and seeing patients and getting them scheduled for surgery. Our surgeries were back up to about 80% because, again, we're taking care of cancer patients and people that need care that can't wait. And so it's really been gratifying to see all the providers pitch in and make sure that people who need the care they get it in a timely manner.
We have another question from someone who's watching on Facebook. Stacy on Facebook is asking, would like to ask Dr. Lairmore, do you know of any collaboration with IDEXX or other companies that can or will design SNAP tests that would be widely available? Maybe you can start off with explaining to us what a SNAP test is.
Well, yeah, IDEXX is one of the largest veterinary diagnostic companies in the world, and we do collaborate with them. In fact, our seminar last night on pets and COVID, Dr. Jane Sykes, our chief medical officer, answered the question, and IDEXX was a partner in that, getting the word out about that. And in fact, because the test is available, they have been testing animals. And, of course, the focus is on those more likely to develop the disease. We know, for example, that ferrets and cats are can be infected with the virus. And so the testing is really focused on COVID positive patients that have pets in close contact. And certainly those then that develop disease, so if they are sick, those would be the ones that we would handle like a COVID patient. We would test them. IDEXX is offering the test. The good news is our pets are likely, especially cats, while they may be infectable, we're actually finding that the incidence is quite low. IDEXX has done extensive of thousands of tests now and virtually come up with 0 positives for pets. So they're very limited in terms of positivity, but there will be tests available for veterinarians because we know that owners will be concerned. But our focus is on those that are from COVID positive households first, for obvious reasons.
I was wondering, Allison, with researchers here and all around the world turning their attention to COVID-19, do you think it's likely that a vaccine might be actually possible within 18 months? I know there are different kinds of vaccines, but what's the likelihood that we will actually see a viable vaccine that can get to people within 18 months?
So as you heard, there's vaccine trials out across the world. I've never seen more energy focused on anything in all my years of medicine. So for the amount of energy, one would hope that we would be able to produce that. Here at UC Davis, we've actually worked with a company that Michael referenced, Venderi. They're working with a unique delivery device. It's a Vax patch, I think is the name. And it's a device with micro needles. So the vaccine comes from the one company, and then the device was developed here. And it's a patch. And so in theory, it could be even mailed, that someone could apply it. That goes back to our antibody discussion and needing to know, what does immunity mean? What level? How long does it take? Those type of things. My hope is that we do have a vaccine because we don't know exactly how many people have been infected in the antibody. It's going to be a learning curve here. I would like to make a big pitch for people to participate in research. The patients who participated in the remdesivir trial and some of our other trials are highly supervised, and this is how we advance knowledge, and this is how we're going to find a vaccine. This is how we're going to find the antibodies. This is how we're going to find a treatment. And as remdesivir was originally for Ebola, we were able to what we call repurpose that drug. So without these kind of trials and without people wanting to participate, then we're going to not advance knowledge. So it's really important. And going back to that issue about people volunteering, they've had COVID, recovered by 28 days, at least for 28 days, they can donate blood. And they can donate blood to this large trial. It's 39 different sites throughout the country. And here in Sacramento, you can donate at one of the blood donation centers, and then your blood could possibly help somebody across the country.
Mm-hmm. Mary, who's watching on Facebook, would like to ask, Sacramento County is offering free COVID-19 NP testing on asymptomatic individuals. Does this serve any clinical purpose, or is this a waste of resources, including test reagents and swabs?
So I think part of the issue is understanding the denominator. So understanding really what asymptomatic carrier really means. We hear a lot of stuff in the press about that. I think that is part of the issue, is understanding how many people are out there who don't have any symptoms but do test positive. Now that rate is probably going to be pretty low, but I think that's one of the values of those tests. There's also a value of knowing how much disease is in your area and when you can begin to lift restrictions. So this part of the phasing approach that is talked about mostly by government is having enough testing to be able to understand when someone gets sick and do contact tracing. That contact tracing is really important. So if someone has a positive test, then you want to be able to, number one, isolate them, but you also want to understand who they contacted, because of course we know that people are contagious before they develop symptoms. So yes, I think that's valuable. I think all of these things need to be done within a protocol so we can understand really what the data is once we get it and know who was tested. For example, were they truly asymptomatic when they got that nasopharyngeal swab?
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to have to wrap up very shortly. We're running out of time, but let's finish with a question from Dana on Facebook. Okay. She's asking, what are each of you most excited about in terms of collaborative research that could be a game changer? Mm-hmm. Just keep it brief.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm excited about is how much of our basic scientists are involved. The immunologists that think deeply about, what is exactly a protective immune response, and really dissecting that. So, because if you go about this without knowing that basic science knowledge, you can do a lot of harm. Actually, we know in animals that cats, for example, with coronaviruses develop non-neutralizing antibodies that actually deposit in the body and cause lesions. And actually, if you start off on the wrong track, then your vaccine will not work. So having those immunologists, those microbiologists, the geneticists, all involved, along with our clinicians, that's where the magic happens, is where you have that basic and clinical science. I think that's the exciting part.
So I agree with Michael. I think the collaboration that's happened is really exciting. I'm also excited about the time. So I talked to the faculty, and never would they have believed that we would be able to turn things around within days to get study approvals, to get the approval to use samples and share information. So while we're all now into Zoom, we are doing things in record time that no one has ever seen before. So there have been game changers in sharing that information, the rapidity of the information, the working collaboratively to be very innovative, such as 3D printing or making reagents, or very concrete things that I think really we can take to the patient very quickly. And the rapidity that we've been able to do things is just really amazing.
So one of the game changers that I see is related to the most commonly asked question is about the complexity of testing. Now, while reviewing the seed proposals, I saw there was one proposal from our faculty in medical school as well as engineering. They had proposed an idea where you have a small device, you just blow into it, and it will capture the micro droplets from the air that you blow out and analyze the chemical composition of it and try to detect, if there is something wrong. It's not only limited to COVID-19. The whole philosophy over there is that, can we do self-testing at home to do at least a first line of evaluation before we get into this complex testing? So we need more of such kind of things as we go forward. And again, I might be repeating, all those things can be achieved only through collaborations across the disciplines.
Well, it's very exciting to see, people with such amazing expertise, crossing the campus, breaking down walls, and working together to come up with these really important solutions. Yeah. Before we go, we should let people know that that Deans Brashear and Lairmore, you two are going to be launching a weekly podcast in the next couple of weeks, where you'll be continuing these kinds of conversations. Anything you want to share about that?
Well, so much more to talk about. I think we're just touching the very tip of the iceberg here with these subjects. I think we're very excited. Allison and I have talked about, if you look at the amount of work that we're doing across the medicine and veterinary medicine, there's at least 12 different major areas. But in terms of COVID, as we take the topics and can explore them more deeply, I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to working with Michael. I think UC Davis is unique in having just a world-class veterinary school and School of Medicine. And so really being able to partner those not only is great for those who are scientists now, but it really is a great role model for the future scientists, whether they're veterinarians or medical doctors. I want to encourage everyone to go into science, and this will be a great way to show them exactly the impact that you can make.
We need that next generation.
Yes, we do.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for your time and for all the great work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Allison Brashear is Dean of the UC Davis School of Medicine. Michael Lairmore is Dean of the UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine. And Prasant Mohapatra is Vice Chancellor for Research at UC Davis. This was the first of our new biweekly UC Davis Live COVID-19 discussions. Every other week, we'll be hearing from researchers from across the UC Davis campuses who are working on vaccines, therapies, and medical devices, tracking the virus and looking for solutions in unexpected places. Until next time, I'm Soterios Johnson, and this is UC Davis Live COVID-19.